Wow. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Moss from Spiral Path, live with the first birthday Q&A. So you can probably tell I've never done this before, so I'm a little bit nervous. So if you're here and watching, be nice. Oh, the first person's here. Thank you. Hey. Yeah, cool. So yes, Spiral Path is 1 year old. Actually, it was 1 year old on the 1st of February. And I thought a nice thing to do would be to kind of share a bit more of my thoughts, essentially, and find out what you guys wanted to know from me. So I put a call out to my patrons, to you here on Instagram, on my newsletter followers. And I've got so far 3 incredibly deep questions, which is great because I'd kind of rather talk in depth about things. So yeah, this may take me a while because I also ramble too. So, is there a way of doing live captions on here? Anyone know? Tried to figure it out beforehand and I could not work it out. And there are so many little symbols here. I guess I'll add them on afterwards. So, just going to get into it. Welcome if you're here and if you join at any point. And yeah, if you want to ask any questions, please put them in caps and I'll come back to them at the end. Okay, so first question, and it's a big one. It's from Joanna. Thank you so much, Joanna, for this interesting question. So let's crack on with it. Joanna asked me, I'd love to hear how you blend your spirituality into your everyday life. If you do, or if you prefer to keep them separate, then tell us a bit about why you made that choice. Is it important to bring spirituality, the sacred, into the mundane? Is there a difference, or are they just labels that we use? If there is a difference, how do we differentiate between the two? So yeah, as I kind of said earlier, big questions that have been given, which is awesome. So I appreciate that. So yeah, Joanna, to answer your question, yes, I absolutely blend my spirituality into my everyday life. I can't conceive of what it would be like to have pockets for those two things, and kind of have those as different parts of my life. It's my worldview. It's literally the way I view the world, through the lens of my beliefs and my spirituality and my spiritual practices. So yeah, absolutely are they the same for me. So my spirituality is not a hobby. It's not something that I can kind of enact and embody and then leave behind. It's absolutely ingrained in who I am. And so, it really encompasses both my inner world, and the outer world, and how I move through both and what I get out of both. So yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I'm not saying that my way is right, or anyone else's way is wrong. I'm only speaking from my own perspective. But yeah, for me, the sacred and the mundane are the same thing. It's merely a matter of kind of habit, and a kind of usual thought patterns, that kind of thing. So in the past few years, I've actually been kind of trying to really consciously expand on what my concept of the sacred is, and really kind of broaden out what devotional acts can look like. I've been inspired by people like Kellyanne Maddox, who inspires me on YouTube for loads of different things. So check them out if you haven't seen them already. But I'm talking about things like picking up rubbish when I go to sacred sites. I've started to become a pagan chaplain through my local university, and I consider that an act of offering to my deity. Other things that I do, Spiral Path, what you're watching right now. I recently have started a new practice of, I've put a picture of one of my deities, Breeze, just up there on the wall. And she, to me, is very integral in what I'm trying to do with this business, with this project. So I've written out a little kind of devotional to her, which essentially says, I'm dedicating my work to you. You inspired this work. You gave me this task, and I am doing that. And other work that I do too, you know, is it's an offering. Just like a physical thing is an offering too. Time, energy, effort, these are offerings as well. What else? Things like my tattoos. You know, they hurt a lot, they cost a lot, they take a lot of time, and these are the kind of main elements that usually make up an offering, combined with the meaning, the intense meaning that they always carry for me. So yeah, those are a part of it too. And I'm also a dance teacher, and I very much see that as a sacred act, both within myself, within my body, and in combination with the other people I dance with and connecting with them, and what that brings to the world through art, through craft, through beauty. So yeah, I think it's really a beautiful thing and a positive thing to expand our sense of what our spiritual practices can look like. And you know, if you're somebody who, like myself, used to think that meant just sitting at the altar, then, you know, I challenge you to kind of think about that a little bit deeper and think about what else you want to give to the world, and what you're already doing that you can give in offering. And the only difference there is a slight shift in mindset rather than, you know, needing to buy anything or do anything extra. So other things I wanted to say about that point, yeah, it's very hard to answer this in relation to other people. And as I said earlier, although Spiral Path is trying to create community to facilitate people to explore their relationship to nature and their own spirituality further, I don't want to kind of tell anybody that they have to do things in a particular way. I think many of us are drawn to these kinds of practices with the earth because we're not interested in dogmatic religions and structures of faith. So yeah, that's important to me too. But in thinking about other people, and again, coming back to your question, sacred and mundane, to me, they are just labels. Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of like all language. What those amazing people of you here watching this, what you think of individually when I say the words sacred versus mundane, it's going to be completely different, just as much as it is when you enact those words in your life, if you do. So it's an individual thing to navigate. And again, in answering your question, yes, I think it is very important to merge our concept of the two, because it dictates how we see and move through the world, to consider the world and our experiences in the world as sacred and as sacred acts, with the kinds of things that I've already mentioned. Let me grab a swig of water here. Yeah, so we know that we're living in the midst of a climate crisis. There's no denying that. You know, there are people who do, but let's forget about them for the time being. We know that we're living in a time of climate breakdown. So the earth needs us to find our own ways to come into relationship with the earth and with the land. And there's, you know, so much history and baggage and political factors and systems of oppression that dictate and confine how we are able to connect to the land. So I'm not saying that it's an easy task, but just it is a very necessary and important one. Yeah, we need to cultivate relationship with all beings, and you know, that is a part of that is accepting some of the more difficult things about nature, that we do have a tendency as a species to romanticize it. And I definitely hold my hand up there that I do that just as much as anyone else does. But yeah, it's like, you know, I'm lucky enough to be in a very long-term relationship, and part of a long-term relationship is coming to accept that neither of you is perfect. No person is perfect, and so, you know, it's part of a good relationship is coming to understand you know, all elements of a person. And to me, it's the same with the earth. If we truly want to forge a relationship with the earth, and we acknowledge that that's a challenge, that it's not going to be easy, and particularly when it comes to things like ethical questions, it becomes incredibly difficult for us. But I think the point is not, the idea of reaching a particular destination or a perfect spiritual path or practice, but it's about the questions we ask ourselves, the discussions that we have, like we're having now, and the journey that we take along the way in considering these issues. So yeah, there's some of the things that I think around that. You asked me one other thing about this question, about if we do differentiate between the two, then how do we differentiate between them? Which, again, is going to be quite an individual thing. And I think that, if you do separate out the sacred from the mundane or the profane, as some people call it, you are in essence closing yourself off to many sacred experiences, spiritual experiences, because you're creating expectations and rules around what those experiences and what that mindset is for you. You'll tell yourself that you can only have those experiences when you're sat at your altar or when you're on your mat, or whatever that looks like for you. And I want to have sacred experiences anywhere and anytime, including things like those special moments when you see a sunset in the city and it just kind of reaches something deep inside you, or, the weed growing out of the pavement is telling you its lessons about resilience and what that looks like. If I tell myself I can only have sacred experiences at my altar, then I'm discounting literally the rest of the world and the outside world, and I'm giving myself an incredibly narrow definition of what a spiritual experience can look like. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important for us to at least think about walking through the world with a worldview that kind of brings these two elements together. And if we want to strengthen our relationship to the earth, which, as I've said, living in a climate crisis is it's just really one of the most important urgent things that we can do right now, is to come into relationship with nature and with the land. We need to really cultivate a sacralized, a sacred outlook on the earth, in my opinion. So yes, I think I've answered all elements of your question there. I'm wondering what those folks of you who are here, hi to all of you, do you have any thoughts on this question about the difference between the sacred and the mundane, and are they separate, or is that just kind of words that we've given to these concepts? Yeah, feel free to share, and I will read out your comments as long as they're polite. Excuse the lapping noises. It's small glass bottle. Hydration, folks, is the way to go. Okay, so yeah, that was already quite a way down the rabbit hole, and question number 2 really kind of ties in with a lot of the topics that I brought in already, and so it's a really good point to kind of follow on from that. So thank you, Vanessa, for question number 2. This one's a little bit shorter and sweeter. So Vanessa says, or asked, I'd really like to know more about animism and what it's about. What does it look like for you, and how do you work it into your daily life if you do? So I'm just reading this comment here. Like I'm a squirrel. What a great name. I really appreciated your response. I'm trying to be more aware of those small sacred moments. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts too. And I would just say about that, it's a practice, and I don't have it nailed down either. Literally the entire kind of society in which we live and work and build relationships and move through has been constructed to divide us and distract us, and make us focus on things around making money and being productive. Obviously that's not the whole of it, but yeah, we are not kind of raised in a way that makes it easy to kind of keep our eyes open to these moments. So don't give yourself a hard time there, and just like anything, I'd say just keep trying, and I'm saying that to myself as well, and the more we try, the more it becomes a habit, it becomes habitual. So thank you so much for that, I really appreciate it. So another swig, and then on to question 2. Animism, what a topic. So animism, coming from animate, anima, is essentially the idea that all things are alive and are connected by life force or spirit. And all things being alive, some people would take that to say everything is alive and has this life force, whereas other people confine that more to that which is natural, which again, natural is an incredibly difficult, in some ways problematic term. So you could be thinking about living beings instead of all things. You could be thinking about species, you could be thinking about things animate, as the name suggests. So, moving, breathing, or, generally, animism kind of tends to have quite a broad definition that includes the living world in particular. So rocks, mountains, rivers, places. And then, if you want to incorporate things like cities, plastics, technology, tools made by people, medicines, bacteria, that really is where it starts to get a little bit more of a debate, let's say. So we'll keep it kind of broad for the time being, and talk about this idea of life force and all beings being connected by life force. It's also, animism is a defining feature of pre-Christian and indigenous cultures, just to kind of mention that. And that's an important thing to bear in mind when it comes to things like decolonization and the kinds of conversations that we have about decolonization. It's important to keep that in the back of your mind, that not all cultures have the same worldview and approach to the very nature of the way that we view what is living, what is a being, what is a sovereign being, what is a citizen, what is a nation. These are all up for debate and discussion. Focusing on myself and my own kind of response to this, which is another element of the question that I was asked. I quite enjoy phrases like the Council of All Beings, the Democracy of Species, the Web of Weird, which comes from the Anglo-Saxons, or the Web of Life, which, as my friend reminded me the other day, is a Lion King phrase, I suppose. So those are kind of the ways in which I like to imagine or visualize what it is when I'm really thinking about animism. And so what that looks like to me, I have to say, is not only spiritual, but it's deeply political as well. Because, if we have an animate view of the world, then reciprocity and responsibility are absolutely key. Because if I view all beings as equal to myself, and as important and sentient as myself, although again, sentience why should something have to experience the world in the same way as I do for me to afford it respect? I don't quite agree with that. So again, it gets a little bit tricky there. But responsibility and reciprocity to me are absolutely key in having an animist kind of worldview of things. And it's political because we have been deliberately cut off from seeing the results of our actions. So what I'm talking about there is, if I lived in a small community, and, you can think of that in certain parts of the world right now, or you can think of it in the past, it's far more likely that I would be able to see the effects of my actions on the other beings around me. Whereas living the way that we do now, and particularly living under capitalism, the effects of the waste that I create, the effects of the things that I buy, of the products that I use, these are deliberately hidden from me, I believe. So it's incredibly hard to maintain that sense of respect for and desire to protect all life if I can't see how I'm harming it and how I'm abusing it and how I'm taking from it. So that's one way in which I think an animist worldview for me is a political thing. And this also kind of relates to what I said in the first question about, animism. It's having an animist worldview. It's about my interactions, not just with people, but with all beings, and that's again just a part of how I move through the world. And how I think about the world and how I feel moving through the world. And again, when I speak in that way, I'm talking about the inner landscape as well as the outer landscape. And so when you expand it in that way, you're also talking about beings that you meet within yourself, within your own experiences, as well as beings that you meet, in the outer world. So just a little side note there. So again, speaking for myself, because that's what I was asked, and how I kind of relate to animism, and again kind of bringing that back to why I think that it's political, as an anarchist, and kind of being open about that and how it relates to what I'm trying to do here with Spiral Path. I want to work in harmony and cooperation with all beings. My absolute strongest desire is that I live in harmony with all beings and in solidarity with all beings, and that I don't seek to dominate any other type of beings. And speaking of that, my cat is scratching at the door, so I'm going to offer solidarity and open it so she can get on the bed and sleep some more. So bear with me. Come, Peta. Come down. Thank you. Hello. I totally knew that would happen. But good timing, Pickle. Okay, so, yes. Anarchism and animism, the two A's. What else did I want to say about that? So Vanessa also asked me, how do I kind of work in an animist worldview into how I move through my life? And I kind of spoke about this with some examples in the first question, about how service and devotion, to be of service, is part of having that animist worldview, to be of service to other beings, essentially, is, to me, it's kind of the point of life, without, getting even deeper than where we are now. But yeah, this is very key to me and how I enact my view of the world and my spiritual path. So again, that is reciprocity and thinking about, if I believe all beings are equal to me, then I believe offerings are I was going to say currency, but I don't like to frame it that way. But can you see what I'm saying there? Is like I need to show my appreciation for all of the things that I receive by offering back to all of the beings and the earth that supports me. So yeah, reciprocity is a big part of it, and offerings. But also trying to find out the truth behind, and truth is a loaded word, but the truth behind how I impact all of those beings, which I kind of mentioned a little bit before. So, you know, I want to make sure that I am not exploiting workers or the planet or animals and other beings. To me, that's a very practical way in which, having this connection and seeing this connection between all beings is really a part of my everyday life. Is, you know, everything I do, I have to say, it's there, it's just built in the back of my mind to ask myself, is this causing harm? Is there a better way of doing this? Am I wasting resources? How can I give thanks to this? You know, these are some of the kind of ways of, again, to me, thinking through a kind of animist mindset. So yeah, solidarity and respect for all life, to me, are inherently align with my politics as well as with an animist view of the world. And that's in no way to say that that is easy, as I said earlier, particularly when it comes to ethics, and really kind of living in alignment with our ethics is incredibly difficult, and I believe that it's been made incredibly difficult on purpose, so that other people can profit from our ethical decisions or lack of ethical decisions. So yeah, I feel like I'm getting a bit waffly on that one, so I will leave it behind. Again, you know, I'm sure I have a lot more to say on all of these, and it's such a massive topic, so I'm just tried to be kind of just skim the surface really and give you a jumping off point for where I'm at with each of these topics. So moving on to the final question, which is another very big question from Ashley. So let me just take some more water. It's thirsty work, this, folks. Okay, Ashley asked a little bit, something a little bit different here. And, you know, I'm kind of wryly smiling to myself because I've been promising my patrons that I would talk about enchantment, re-enchantment and disenchantment for quite a while. So I do apologise. And so Ashley, as I knew she would, is asking me about this. So Ashley's question was, I really want to hear more of your thoughts on re-enchantment. What does it mean to me? Why have I chosen it as an upcoming theme for Spiral Path? And how am I going to incorporate this into my offerings? I'm very excited to hear more, says Ashley. So thank you for that. I knew you'd ask about that. So as I say, it's a big topic, so I've a fair amount to say about it. So the first thing would be a slight disclaimer, just to say that enchantment, re-enchantment, disenchantment, these are all major fields of academic study. So again, I'm just kind of providing a very brief overview of how it relates to what I'm doing here with Spiral Path, rather than trying to give you a kind of in-depth lecture on the history of this theory. So with that out of the way, the main ways in which this relates to Spiral Path kind of needs me to give you a kind of concise little précis, I suppose, of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about re-enchantment. So I'll just be checking my notes here because it's quite a complex topic. So the disenchantment of the world is a phrase that was popularized by the German sociologist Max Weber. And to Weber, disenchantment was the cost that we are paying for post-industrial progress. And this kind of notion of disenchantment and us now all living in a disenchanted world is a very kind of widely adopted but also hotly contested theory. And I have an annoying little thing I need to get out of the way. Thank you. So yeah, it's a huge topic, which is very interdisciplinary. So you'll find all different types of academics discussing disenchantment theory or enchantment theory. And I basically came across it. I went back to university and did undergrad in archaeology, anthropology and art history, and then a master's in world heritage. And you know, it was such a hard-hitting theory for me. I'd never heard about it before. I'd be curious to know if any of you have heard about it. Do let me know. That I actually incorporated it into both of my dissertations. So I suppose my approach to it has been kind of structured around what I was looking at within heritage, and particularly in relation to paganism and folk magic for both of my dissertations, which are on my blog in my link tree if you want to check those out, if this is something that interests you. So, yeah, another kind of interesting phrase that Weber gave us is the past as an enchanted garden. So for me, when I think about this, I think about pagan reconstructionist paths of the past. So, for example, people who are interested in their spiritual practices emanating those of pre-Christian times, particularly, I would say, within paganism, Celtic Reconstructionism and Norse Reconstructionism are two really big ones that I'm aware of. So, you know, if we have this idea that the past was an enchanted place, then it makes sense, as much as that's not my path. She says with Cananis from the Gunderstruck Cauldron on her t-shirt, or they say rather. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that I think it's kind of obvious that people would turn to the past as a means to seek enchantment or re-enchantment. So Weber's theory was really the beginning of kind of linking enchantment, magic and history together, which obviously has been a really big part of the development of modern spiritual paths and belief systems. So again, a bit more background context for my notes. René Descartes really gave us this mechanical conception of nature. I remember the first time I came across this, and I was reading Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, which is an amazing book if you haven't read it. And Singer talks about Descartes would say that a dog who was dying, the sounds that they were making was merely the squeakings of machinery. So there was a completely kind of cold and cut off view of the natural world. Maybe it's wrong of me to kind of allow my own feelings to get in the way, but maybe also that's why you're here. I was asked for my own opinion after all, and I'm giving it. I'm not a student anymore, so I'm free to say what I want to say. So yeah, Cartesianism, which came from Descartes, the name really kind of revolutionized Western thought and spread right across Europe. And Cartesianism is a real kind of fundamental pillar of the Enlightenment and Enlightenment thinking, which still really is just such a fundamental element of how we still view the world in the West through science, through psychology. and other, schools of thought that I'm not so kind of schooled on. It's a fundamental part of our current worldview. So also because of Descartes, we have this, which I kind of thought I wouldn't go into, but here I am saying it anyway. We were given a binary view of the world, of good and bad, of night and day, of male and female. We have a lot to thank Descartes for. Tongue in cheek, if you don't know me there. What else did I want to say about that? So, because of Cartesianism and the Enlightenment, and again, remember, I'm very much kind of simplifying things here, but this really led to this kind of hyper-rationalist view of the world, and many people consider this point in our history, where the Enlightenment happened as the loss of the enchanted worldview, because pre-Enlightenment beliefs and practices then, and I did argue in my dissertation now, remain to be seen as archaic. And there's very kind of classist elements in there as well, and colonialist elements in there too, that we don't have time to get in right now. But like I say, both my dissertations are there through my Linktree if you're interested in reading more. Thankfully, there are amazing academics such as Susan Greenwood, who suggest that magical thinking, is how they termed it, has survived. Thank you very much. Happy birthday to Spiral Path. I appreciate it. Don't worry about interrupting. That's what I'm here for. That's what you're here for. But thank you. So Susan Greenwood suggests that basically all wasn't lost with the Enlightenment, and that magical thinking and enchantment did survive through certain things, particularly through folklore, folk magic, folk practices, and animism and animist beliefs, which again is where you can kind of loop back around and cycle back around to indigenous thinking. Caitlin, that's a discussion for you and I for another time. Just a reminder. So what else did I want to say about that? So the question also asked me about what it means to me. And as I've said, kind of learning about these words and these theories on my courses, they gave me a theory, and they gave me the language to really show what I thought, what my conception of what has happened to the world, of this change from the past and how we viewed the world, and our animist past, essentially, to tie it in with the former question, and how we left that behind and stepped into this very rational way of thinking that kind of scoffs at, and let's be honest, that still happens, scoffs at those people who are enchanted still, or are trying to find re-enchantment. So it gave me a language to start to be able to discuss these things, and it really inspired me and gave me a sense of briefly, I'll say, of belonging within academia once I began to find scholars who are discussing these kinds of theories. So, I said that it's given me ways to discuss what I thought happened to the world, but obviously what's still happening to the world through capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, white supremacy, and other systemic oppressions. Disenchantment, it is, I found out since, that it's not as simple as I thought it was, and it can be a problematic theory as well, which is why I've kind of given so many caveats to say that this is such a huge topic that I can't kind of do justice to right now. But on a very base level, it describes this legacy that the Enlightenment has left us with, as disconnecting us from nature. And that was the first time that I was able to actually put into words and explain to other people, what I thought had happened, at least in the West, to us and our connection to nature. I'd known for a long time that we had been disconnected from nature, and that phrase is something that is really bandied about. But I had nothing beyond that to kind of discuss that process. So it really was, I guess, the most important thing, the main thing that I still carry with me from going back to university. So I'm grateful for that. That's why I think it's important, and that's why I want to make it part of the conversation that I'm having with people with Spiral Path. Because as I was saying earlier about our urgent need to cultivate a relationship with the earth, to me that is re-enchantment. To be able to have this worldview and walk through the inner landscape and the outer landscape, and to feel a part of this web of life, is to be re-enchanted. That's my argument. That was my argument, remains my argument anyway. And that's why I believe that enchantment has a role to play with what I'm trying to do with Spiral Path here. So as we... what did I want to say there? Sometimes I just need to think, my brain gets carried away when I'm passionate about something like this, and it's like, okay, rein it in, Do you have those moments? I definitely do. So cultivating a re-enchanted worldview, it goes hand in hand, as I've said, with reconnecting to nature, but also re-embracing cyclical lives, and cyclical lives as our ancestors have done before us, wherever we come from in the world and wherever we are now in the world. Our ancestors did live in enchanted times, at least in the sense of the Enlightenment anyway, pre-Enlightenment ancestors. And obviously, as I've said already, that conversation becomes a whole lot more layered and complex if we're talking about colonization and Indigenous folks. Re-embracing cyclical lives, but also, to cultivate this worldview, I believe gives us the tools to help us to slow down and to release a lot of the guilt that we feel around rest. I've been promoting rest for a long time now, and what I'm finding through these conversations with people and through trying to promote rest is that we often need other people to give us permission to rest. And that even once we try to make it more of a part of our routines and our habits, so many of us still carry this inner policing, these productivity mindsets that make us feel such guilt around rest. And so I think that is a legacy of disenchantment, of the Enlightenment. So to cultivate a re-enchanted mindset can also give us some tools to re-embrace some of these things that we need so much. And it also helps us to see our place within the broader web of all species, as I was talking about with animism. So, I certainly consider it my personal quest in my own life is to... I've come to see that as find moments of re-enchantment. It's very easy to say, I'm re-enchanted, or I'm working towards re-enchantment. But as the person who commented earlier about finding these moments of relationship and connection to the earth is a lot harder. It's a lot harder than we often imagine it is, because of the systems of oppression that have deliberately severed that tie for us. So yeah, it's not an easy task that we have, but if I can keep kind of finding these moments and keeping up the practice to find these moments within my life and facilitate community to enable other people to do the same, then that's only a good thing, as far as I'm concerned. And as I say, I feel a sense of urgency in the need to do that because of the state of the world as it is at the moment, particularly the state of the climate. So the last part of this question, because as usual I'm rambling, is how I want to incorporate enchantment into the offerings through Spiral Path. So I don't have a crystal clear answer for that yet. It's definitely going to be part of social media posts and the newsletter that I send out occasionally. The usual kind of means of communication. And yes, Ashley, you'll be glad to know that I have been working specifically on this, and I will have enchantment related content coming out very soon. But also, I will definitely make a zine out of it because, as you've probably gathered from my rambling, it's an incredibly broad topic and there's a lot to say about it. So that will be a zine that will be a digital download from my website. And hopefully in the future I'll be able to make it into a workshop too. But at the moment I'm kind of busy with my life coaching training and getting that up and running, and organising some in-person workshops, sacred seasons, if you're local to me, that are coming up, and obviously my usual kind of content for my wonderful patrons who have provided these amazing questions. So yeah, that's about it. That's it for the questions that I've been given. Apologies for the rambly answers. Does anyone who is here, you lovely people, do any of you have any questions for me before I skip off and go hang out with my cat there? I shall give you a moment to type out if you want to. Don't feel shy. I'll give you a moment by having some more water. Wow, I've been talking for 50 minutes. I really can talk. Okay, cool. So nothing's come up at the moment. That is not a problem. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, everyone who has. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who's supported Spiral Path in this first year. It's I have run out of words. This is what I need to be doing with my life. This is what I believe I'm meant to be doing. And I've just had the best year. So even amongst all of this horrible stuff that's going on. So, thank you. That's so sweet. These hearts that are coming up. It's really nice. I hope that was of interest. I hope it was useful, and I'm really happy to talk more about any of these themes. You know, a lot of what's come up tonight has been very central themes for what I'm doing with Spiral Path. So yeah, very happy to talk about them more. If you want to contact me, or social media would be a good way, or email through the website, however you want to. But I will leave it there for now. Happy Imbolc season, everybody. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Ooh. Thank you. I will have a post live cuddle with the cat, and thank you so much. It's very sweet of you. Just saying goodbye, and I'm just so blown away by all the support that Spiral Path has had over the past year. So I cannot thank you enough for that. So I will leave it there and see how I get out of this live thing, which I've never done before. Amy, see you tomorrow. Yes. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.